Hello there. I don't know about you, but every year when the 4th of July comes around, I find myself facing the same internal struggle. Which movie would I rather watch to celebrate America's birthday? 1776 or Independence Day? One is a musical dramatization from 1972 of the events leading up to the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The other is an action sci-fi horror flick from 1996 about aliens trying to take over the world. And just like I can't decide what to watch, I also couldn't decide which one to review. I've wanted to review both at different times in the past and never been able to make up my mind. This year, I decided, even though they don't really have much in common at all, I'll do both together. Why not? On the one hand, we've got Independence Day. It was a big, popular movie, so I'm sure you're familiar with it. I know this might come as a violent shock to anyone out there who thinks of me as being more sophisticated, but Independence Day is one of my favorite movies, and has been since I saw it as a little kid. Yeah, I know it's garnered some snarky criticism, especially since the advent of internet movie reviews, and I know about its faults, the way it's ripped off a ton of alien movies that came before, its plot problems, too many characters who get very little development, the story has some sprawl, and director Roland Emmerich has a thing for destroying national monuments. But I don't care. I love this movie, I always have, I always will. And not even a crummy sequel is gonna change that. I love the build-up, I love the enormous scale, I love that it still scares me. This is the movie that launched my complicated relationship with alien movies. I'm afraid of them, but I like them. To be completely honest, in the 20-plus years that I've been watching this movie, I haven't once made it through a certain scene at Area 51 without looking away. Which is especially crazy because that scene has one of my favorite little moments in the whole movie, when someone asks Adam Baldwin's Major Mitchell if the glass is fireproof and he pulls out his handgun and starts shooting the alien. It's awesome and I love it and I always look forward to seeing it. I just can't watch the stuff leading up to it. But even more, I love this movie's sense of humor. There are plenty of alien invasion movies and shows out there, but most of them don't make me laugh like this one. There are so many lines from this movie that my sister and I used to go around repeating all the time when we were younger. And then there are the characters. All of them. It's packed with military types, political types, scientific nerds, regular people, quirky people, kids, teenagers, characters you love, characters you hate, characters you love to hate, characters you think you don't like until they do something to make you like them. And the three main actors, Will Smith, Jeff Goldblum, and Bill Pullman, are perfectly cast in my opinion. I always get a kick out of the unlikely pairing of Goldblum's environmentalist tech nerd and Smith's hotshot pilot cool guy, and the back and forth between Goldblum and Judd Hirsch as his father is a ton of fun. I've heard that a lot of the dialogue in Goldblum's scenes was improvised, which just makes it even better. And Bill Pullman plays the most wonderful president ever. He's nice, he's responsible, he's a good leader, he's good looking, he's a loving husband and affectionate father. I confess I still get choked up during the hospital scene every time. Then he goes out and gives the greatest presidential speech in history, or at least movie history, before taking off his tie and going to fight with the boys and save the world. There was a period in my early life in the late 90s when we were rewatching this and While You Were Sleeping very frequently. That's a lot of Bill Pullman. And though I feel like nobody talks about this as much, I enjoy David Arnold's score. The tense invasion music always makes me feel pretty anxious, even when I'm just listening to the soundtrack on its own, and the energetic, "Rah, we're awesome" theme is borderline patriotic in my mind. It is the 4th of July, after all. Great use of the horn section. Ever since we bought our second copy, which has the fancy holographic cover, I think this was the DVD copy actually, we wore our VHS tape out because we watched it so much. Ever since we got this, I have usually opted to watch the special edition extended version. It only adds about 10 minutes of footage, and none of it's important. It's mostly comedic parts that didn't make the final cut. But I like it anyway. I especially enjoy the scene where Jeff Goldblum is sitting in the alien spaceship trying to figure out all the bells and whistles. Ooh, there's your connection! Brent Spiner. Brent Spiner memorably played zany Dr. Oaken in Independence Day, and the following year he starred as John Adams in the 1997 revival of the stage play of 1776. I've listened to that revival cast recording, by the way, and he's very good. I'm assuming that 1776 isn't as well known, so I'm going to give more background info on that one. Featuring music and lyrics written by Sherman Edwards and based on a book by Peter Stone, 1776 focuses on the Second Continental Congress in the 2 months of heated debate leading up to the signing of the Declaration of Independence, told mainly from the perspective of John Adams. I saw this movie for the first time about 10 years ago, stayed up ridiculously late watching it, and ever since then it's become one of my favorite movie musicals. A large portion of the cast of the original 1969 Broadway production returned to their roles for the film. For some of them, this was their first movie, for a couple, their only movie. William Daniels, who's known to most people my age as Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World, stars as John Adams, with Howard Da Silva as Benjamin Franklin and Ken Howard as Thomas Jefferson. It's a long movie, longer even than Independence Day, which is 2.5 hours. There is a 141-minute cut, but if you're watching that one, you're missing out. I say go 3 hours or go home. I haven't talked much about musicals on this channel, with a couple exceptions, partly because I tend to love the really nerdy ones that not so many people have heard of, like Chess, and The Mystery of Edwin Drood, and The Scarlet Pimpernel, and this musical. 1776 is definitely a movie for the American history buff who doesn't mind some corniness. I think it does a great job capturing the atmosphere in Philadelphia of a blazing hot summer, made even more unbearable by the heated tempers of the exhausted and irritated delegates from the 13 colonies. Everything about it is very detailed. The accents, the hair. I always notice how the fabrics and styles of the characters' clothing reflect their backgrounds. Silks and ornamentation for the wealthy plantation owners of the South, practical basic earth tones for Adams, a lawyer from Boston, delegates from the middle colonies falling somewhere in the middle. And I love how witty and clever the language is, which is all the more authentic because Sherman Edwards thoughtfully incorporated lines from the original written records. Although I must point out that this isn't an entirely accurate depiction of events. Where's Samuel Adams? Why are Roger Sherman and Robert Livingston's roles in drafting the Declaration so abbreviated? And I'm pretty sure the delegates of the South didn't do a minuet like this. The movie does include some very 70s stylistic touches, some kind of wonky photography and editing choices, which are dated now, and I find them distracting. I could do without them. And I don't love all the songs. I especially don't like the fourth song, The Lees of Old Virginia, which is unfortunate because it takes place within the first 20 minutes of the movie. It's the kind of song that makes me want to bail on a musical, so if I'm introducing the movie to someone, I'm crossing my fingers that they can make it past this scene. But for the most part, I enjoy the music and the non-musical sections. Considering the material, you'd think it would be very dry, but the actors and the music and the writing all work together to keep it lively and interesting. And it's funny, too. There are several characters who provide comic relief, and Ben Franklin is particularly hilarious with his one-liners and his conceit. The story goes through various highs and lows, especially lows, as John Adams struggles to rally support for independence. Adams makes for an unlikely protagonist, since he's portrayed as being, quote, obnoxious and disliked by all of Congress. I love the ferocious tenacity and unflagging dedication to his cause which William Daniels does a great job bringing out. He's not the greatest singer in the world, but this isn't a musical that focuses on powerhouse vocals. It's more about the event, the characters, the motivations, the situation. And I enjoy the emphasis placed on John and Abigail Adams' relationship. This is very much a male-dominated musical, but there are two female characters, and Abigail Adams is one of them. She and her husband duet through their written communication, which was prolific. And while Yours, Yours, Yours isn't the most catchy love theme, it's quite romantic in its sentiment and more meaningful because the lines are taken from their actual correspondence. The other woman in the musical is Martha Jefferson, played in the movie by Blythe Danner. Her voice is pretty, but it's not as strong as Betty Buckley's, who sings on the original Broadway cast recording. Buckley's rendition of He Plays the Violin, which I've listened to many times, is really vibrant and powerful, so by comparison, Danner's always strikes me as very underwhelming. But it's pretty unfair to compare anyone who's not a professional singer to Betty Buckley. That song is one of the highlights in the score for me, as is, bizarrely, Cool Considerate Men, sung by Dickinson and the Southern Delegates. The foggy, slow-motion minuet choreography in the middle of it is weird, but I like how the opening verse cleverly spins off the Star-Spangled Banner.
Oh, say, do you see what I see? Congress sitting here in sweet serenity. I could cheer, the reason's clear. For the first time in a year, Adams isn't here.
It always takes longer to get to the end of the movie than I think it does, because I always forget how drawn out the final debate is. And the final scene, the signing of the Declaration, is very solemnly, dramatically done, the camera slowly pulling way back as each delegate's name is called and a bell tolls. This emphasizes the gravity of this momentous event. This is a big thing these men are agreeing to, since they'll all be hanged as traitors if it doesn't go well. Unlike Independence Day, which gives you a "Yeah, America!" feeling at the end, this is more like, America. I guess for most of the year, given a choice between the two, I'd say I love Independence Day more. But from July 1st to July 4th, I get a special craving for 1776. It is the more historically relevant movie, after all. I would love to find out that someone in my audience is also a 1776 fan. Fellow Independence Day fans would be great to hear from as well, of course, but I don't know anyone else who loves 1776, so that would be really special. This is basically me echoing John Adams. Is anybody there? For my fellow Americans, happy Independence Day, and for everyone else, happy Wednesday. Thanks for watching!